And anyway, one day she was nattering at me, and under my breath I said to her, "You old rat bag." And she didn't hear me because she was deaf, and it was very disrespectful, in case you're wondering. And my mother heard me, though. She didn't hear me. I know she didn't hear me, but my mother heard me. She didn't say a word. When my dad got home from work, the second he walked in the door, she said, "Barry, you're going to have to do something about your son. He called Mrs. Hildebrand a rat bag." Without even thinking about it, he instantly had my punishment. And he said, "You've lost your allowance for the rest of your life." Just like that. It was done. Just like that. And lost allowance for the rest of it. You know, that was 52 years ago, and I still haven't got my allowance back yet.
Welcome to Church of the Rock from Winnipeg. Stay tuned to this week's thought-provoking message from Pastor Mark Hughes.
So today I'm carrying on in my series called Courageous Parenting, and boy, if there was ever a time you needed to be a courageous parent, this was it. I mean, parenting is not for the faint of heart. I have this little theory you might like. I think that sex is God's way of tricking us into having children. I mean, seriously, how many kids would you have if you had to buy them from IKEA and assemble them yourselves? You know, 1,000 little screws with those tiny little Allen wrenches, and then you get halfway done. "Oh no, I put the fingers on upside down." You'd only have one, right? And they are building children. You can buy them, actually. Let me see that picture. Got that picture for me? There you go. It's as creepy as all get out, but they are building baby robots, so that's a possibility for you as well. So sticking with the military theme, last week I talked about basic training, and today I'm going to talk about an officer and a gentleman. And I'll tell you why I've chosen that term, an officer and a gentleman, is because what it means in military terms. And here's the definition. I'll throw it up on the screen. An officer and a gentleman is a person who is trustworthy and respectful towards others, and who acts with a strong sense of duty and responsibility. Special emphasis on the two words trustworthy and respectful. And so where we really know this word from is if you ever watch a military drama on television, if there was ever a court-martial, they would say this man is being charged with conduct unbecoming of an officer and a gentleman. And the officer and the gentleman, the two things about them are the same things that we need to instill into our kids, and they are honesty and respect. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But let me point this out to you. When we first had kids, we went to our first parenting seminar, and honestly, to this day, I can't remember any of it. That's how much it helped me, except for one thing, and it was this opening line of the whole series, and this is what he said, and I've never forgot it. He said, "Everyone enjoys their children. The big question is, does anyone else enjoy your children?" And that hit me like a ton of bricks, and I thought that should be the goal of child raising, is what we should be doing is we should be raising our children in such a way that not only do we enjoy them, that others enjoy them, and the way you're going to do that is with these two rules of honesty and respect. When we had children, I decided I'm gonna post the rules on the fridge. So I posted the rules, and the rules were this: we will not yell, we will not scream, we will not get mad, we will not fight, we will not throw things at people, we will not hit people, we will not have temper tantrums, we will be good and we will be kind and we will be decent to one another. Why? Because we're the parents. We're the parents. We're the parents. So we had rules for us, and then we had some rules for our kids. So let me tell you what the two rules are. And you can have more rules than this if you want, but I'm going to give you two that if you can do these two things, the rules of an officer and a gentleman, I'm telling you everything else falls into place, and they're honesty and respect. Rule number one is honesty, and you instill into your children this ethic that we will always tell the truth. And secondly, respect. We will always be respectful. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a bit of a stab at this, and we're going to start with the first rule. Rule number one is honesty. And the thing we teach our children and the thing we model ourselves is we will always tell the truth. Now here's the challenge, and you know this, that honesty is in short supply today. We live in what's called a post-truth culture, and it's absolutely the case. And you might or may not recognize this man. His name is Bill Adair, but you might recognize this. In 2006, he founded a website called PolitiFact. And so here it is. I love his little thing, Pants on Fire. I love that. And I always wondered when you're lying if your pants are really on fire or not. I'm not sure about that. But nevertheless, so he launches this website. Here was his reasoning. Here was his motive. He noticed that politics had become characterized by politicians lying and lying and lying. So he decided what he was going to do was create this fact-checking website, and whenever a politician said something, he would fact-check it on his website. And what his goal was this. He was trying to raise the cost of telling a lie. And that if the cost of telling a lie, meaning you get exposed, was higher, he figured it would actually bring more truth into politics. 15 years later, he admitted that it did not work and that he didn't move the needle, not even a little bit, in the world of politics. So then he started to do a little bit of investigative research, and he began to go around to politicians and found a few of them that were willing to answer him. And his question was this: why do you lie? That's all he wanted to know. Why do you lie? And here's the answer. The reason they told him is the reason they lie is because it works. And there are no consequences for lying in politics today. Now, you just think about the world we live in, and you know that's true, right? Now, here's what I want to do. I want to go back in time a half a century to a president by the name of Jimmy Carter. Most of you in this room would remember that name. Got elected in 1976. And I'm going to throw up on the screen the promise he made to the American people 50 years ago. You've got to see it. Look at this. He said this: I will never tell a lie. I will never make a misleading statement. I will never betray the confidence that any of you had in me, and I will never avoid a controversial issue. When he got elected, or when he was getting elected, he said this. He said, if I ever tell a lie, then I don't deserve to be your president. I mean, this is an extraordinary promise, to say that you're never going to tell a lie and that you're never going to mislead someone. He endeavored to keep this promise that he had made to the American people, and the odd thing is it cost him. And in the end, his candor betrayed him, and he only served one term. We are now living in what I would consider a culture of lies. I was talking to someone the other day, and he was going on and on about a particular politician. I won't mention the person's name, but he was going on and lauding all his achievements and whatever. And I said, doesn't the fact that he lies almost continually bother you? To which he said, well, he's no worse than any of the others. And I thought to myself, so that's our measurement? That's our bar? That everybody else lies and he doesn't lie any more than anybody else? And I thought, well, how did we get here? How did we land in this place where people are so full of mendacities? And the problem is, we live in a culture of lies. And I want to introduce you to Pamela Myers. Pamela Myers is the world's foremost expert on lying. Everybody has a shtick, and this is her shtick. And so I'm going to show you a picture. Here she is. And this is her TED Talk, and it's called How to Spot a Liar. And here's her statement. You're going to love this statement because as it relates to parenting, this is what she said. By the time you were 12 years old, you were swimming in a vast, spoiled sea of lies, told to you by not only the big bad government, but by your mom and your dad and your friends and your colleagues. And her conclusion, you're not going to like any of this. Her conclusion is that everybody lies. Every one of us lies. And we tell thousands of lies in our lifetime, hundreds of lies every single year, and sometimes most of us lie every single day. She has a bit of research online. She says the extroverts lie more than the introverts. Well, we talk more, so I understand that. She said that men lie to protect themselves and women lie to prevent conflict. And she said the average person, research shows that the average person will lie 3 times in the first 10 minutes of meeting a stranger. And she says we're all liars. So she tells us that we're living in this terrible, horrible culture of lying. She also says that she, in her mind, which is sort of weird to me, that there are lies that are harmless lies. There are white lies, and then there are lies that are harmful. And so rather than trying to convince us not to lie. Her thing is how to spot a liar. And she says, here's what we need to do. We live in a culture of lies, so what we need to do is learn how to recognize when we've been lying to us. Because here's her theory. She says that lying is a cooperative act. And here's what she means. She says a lie has no power unless you believe it. So her goal is to try to get people not to believe the lies. So I'm bothered by this, I'll be honest with you, and here's what I would like to do. I would like to tell you that every lie you ever tell in your life will have a negative consequence, but I would be lying if I told you that. Because it's just not true, and unfortunately you can go to the scripture and you can find instances in the scripture of people lying. And you will find, we talked about it last week, the midwives in Goshen, they lied to the Pharaoh about these babies being born. As it were. And we look at Rahab, the harlot in Jericho. She lied to hide the spies, the Jewish spies. We have Abraham. He lied about his wife. He said that she was his sister, not his wife, to spare his own life. So you look at these stories, and they're actually commended for lying. And here's the problem. If there are good lies and bad lies, then we will make our own distinction on that, and we will end up in a world of situational ethics and relative morality. Do you know what I'm talking about? And we'll have people saying, well, this lie is okay, and this lie is okay, and this side's okay. And that's how we ended up in this place we're in. And I think what we need is we need to go right back to the beginning. We need to look at the essence of lying. And to see, if I was to ask you this question, and if I was to say, what was the original sin in the Garden of Eden? What was the original sin? Most of you would probably correctly answer by saying pride. And you could go and make a very strong case on that from the text. But I would argue the original sin in the Garden of Eden was lying. Because what Satan did, he was the first, he started it, and he came to Adam and Eve, and he lied to them, and he said, God said, you will die if you eat of this tree, and I say, you will not die, but you will be like God, knowing both good and evil. He lied to them, the very first sin. And I will remind you what Jesus said about the devil. He said, your father, the devil, is the father of lies, and there is no truth in him. So that's the devil. And then about God, it says that God is truth, and it's impossible for him to tell a lie, Hebrews chapter 6. So you have to decide. You have to answer this question. Where am I going to come down on this? Am I going to end up like God, or am I going to end up like Satan? Because those are the choices we have. And we have to make this decision. Are we going to, yes, we live in a culture of lies. You turn on the television, or you go to a movie, and if you notice, you probably haven't noticed this because you're so used to it. Everybody lies. The children lie to the parents lie to the children, the bosses lie to the employers lie to the bosses. Everybody in the movie, and it makes for great drama, and it makes for great comedy, and we watch this and we think that is normal, and that's how life goes on. And yet we look at the nature of God, and we are supposed to live out somehow the image of Christ and imitate Christ and follow him. And it says there was only truth in him, and impossible for him to lie. And of course, we know that lying is a sin. We know that it is the 9th commandment. You shall not bear false witness. That's a sin. So here's the bigger issue, and here's where I'm going, where it relates to the family. Here's the problem with lying. It breaks relationship. See, when you lie to someone, you've broken relationship. Is that true? Now you can't be trusted. And when you break trust, you break relationship. And you know, when you look at almost all the problems and all the sins in the world, they all involve lying. If you murder somebody, there's a good chance you're going to lie. That was bad, by the way, to murder someone, in case you think I'm leaving that out. It's bad, but then you'll lie about murdering somebody, won't you? Stealing is bad, but then you lie about that stealing, right? And the number one cause of divorce in North America is adultery. And people who commit adultery, what do? They lie, and 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 it breaks relationship. And so what it's incumbent upon us as parents is that we are going to have to teach our kids and model to our kids that honesty has its own virtue, and that is a way to live. And it's a challenge because you not only have to teach your kids this, you have to model it. So I'm going to tell you one of my lowest moments in parenting, which I think is going to make me look very bad, and you're going to enjoy very much. So that's pretty much always how it works, but here's my story. It's such a terrible story, I can't believe I'm going to tell you. So anyway, here's what happened. So when our kids were a little bit older, teenagers, we took them all skiing. We were out in the mountains. And I went to the chalet and I bought the lift tickets for everybody. And I came out and I handed Kathy hers, and I was handing the kids their lift ticket. And I handed one to my daughter, and she looked at the ticket and she said, "Pop, you bought me a youth ticket. I turned 18 last month." And I went, "Oh, well, don't worry about it. You can be a youth today." She says, "I'm not going to lie." I said, "Well, I'm not asking you to lie. Today you can be 17, tomorrow I'll buy you an adult ticket, you can be 18 tomorrow." She says, "What if they ask me how old I am?" I said, "They're not going to ask you. Just put the ticket on, let's get on the lift, let's go, nobody cares." She says, "But what if they ask me? Because if they ask me, I'm not going to lie." And I said, "Well, good, then, but they're not going to ask you, so I'm not worried about it. Get in line, we're going up to the top of the hill." So we got in the line, she was in front of us. She gets to the ticket checker, and he says, "A youth, eh? How old are you?" I've never seen anyone ask that question before on a lift line in my life. And he asked her and says, "How old are you?" She says, "I'm 18 years old. My father bought me a youth ticket, and he told me to lie to you." She's saying like a jailhouse rat. She just threw me under the bus. And I was right behind her watching this whole thing. I was incredulous. I couldn't believe this was happening. And I felt so badly for her because she was so embarrassed. I don't care. I don't get embarrassed because I don't care what strangers think of me, but I was so hurt for her that she was so embarrassed. So I immediately took responsibility for it. I said to the lift officer, "You know what? That was me. I did that. I bought her the wrong ticket." I said, "Let me correct that right now." And so I said to the rest of the family, "You guys go up the lift and we'll catch up to you." And we took our skis off and we were walking back to the chalet, and I was going to buy her the adult ticket. I put my arm around her and I said, "I am so proud of you for telling the truth. You have no idea." And I was so proud of you. You know what that tells me? Yeah, you can clap for her. And then I'll give you my twisted conclusion. And then I thought, boy, have I done a good job of parenting her. You know, I'm kidding. And here's my risk in telling you this story. By telling you this story, I've really set myself up. Because now you're sitting there going, wait a minute, our pastor is a liar. How will I ever know if he's telling the truth again? Well, here's my only defense. Maybe I made that whole story up and I'm lying about lying. And therefore I'm telling the truth. Would that work? Nobody's biting on that one, okay. So the first thing is this: I have an officer and a gentleman, and the parent raising their children is honesty and always telling the truth. The second thing is respect. And respect is the same as honesty in the sense that when you lose respect for someone, guess what? You have broken that relationship. Am I right? When you don't respect your boss, you probably have a broken relationship. When you don't respect your spouse or your children respect you. See, it goes both ways, by the way. Children respect their parents, and parents respect their children. And by the way, that is also one of the 10 Commandments, in case you're trying to keep track, and it's commandment number 5, to honor or respect your mother and father. And so we have this thing called respect. And when I look around our world today, I don't see a world that lives in respect. I don't see people that are training their kids to respect their elders. I grew up in a generation, I grew up in the 60s, like some of you did here, and respect was expected. It was not an option. It was not, it was absolutely mandatory. If you didn't respect your elders, you were in trouble. We said, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. We called the adults, never, ever, ever called them by their first name like people do today. We would call them, Mr. McDonald and Mr. Smith and Mr. Jones and Mr. Magoo and Mr. McDuck, or whatever their names were. And you always had that kind of respect. And when we lost that sense of respect, we were in trouble. And I'm going to tell you this story again. I don't know why I have only stories that make me look bad, and I tell this story from time to time. Maybe some of you have heard it. But so growing up, we had this housekeeper. Her name was Mrs. Hildebrand. She came in once a week and she cleaned the house. And for whatever reason, she didn't like me, and I don't know why, because I was like the perfect kid, as you could well imagine. And she was always sort of hacking at me and nattering at me and saying, "Mark, put your shoes in the closet. Mark, hang up your coat. Mark, And I'm thinking to myself, isn't this your job? Is this what we pay you for? I was such a brat. And anyway, one day she was nattering at me, and under my breath I said to her, "You old rat bag." And She didn't hear me because she was deaf. And it was very disrespectful, in case you're wondering. And my mother heard me, though. She didn't hear me. I know she didn't hear me, but my mother heard me. She didn't say a word. When my dad got home from work, the second he walked in the door, she said, "Barry, you're going to have to do something about your son. He called Mrs. Hildebrand a rat bag." Without even thinking about it, he instantly had my punishment. And he said, "You've lost your allowance for the rest of your life." Just like that. It was done. Just like that. And lost the allowance for the rest of You know, that was 52 years ago, and I still haven't got my allowance back yet. He rolled that thing right up. Now, I want to talk to you about this thing called respect in families. I want to go back to pop culture again. I want to go back to movies and TV shows. And I'm wondering if you've also noticed not only the lack of honesty, but the lack of respect on television. Think about it. They yell at each other and they call each other names within the families. And I don't have any framework for this. I have nowhere to put this one, but you've seen it if you've watched enough movies. You've got kids and parents using the F word on each other. How many of you have seen this in a movie? The rest of you are pretending you don't watch these movies. Whatever. I'm telling you, it's everywhere. I'm thinking, seriously? Would this take place in a family today? I mean, I've heard it so rarely in my life. I just can hardly believe it. And I grew up in this house that you wouldn't speak like that ever, ever, ever. And I had parents that never, ever swore. I never once heard them swear in my house. And my dad had the best line. He was very smart. And he used to say this. He said, "Your use of vulgarity merely reveals your lack of vocabulary." Isn't that fantastic? You can use that one. And so I always remember, he had a great vocabulary, and so he didn't need to, there's so many insults you can use otherwise. You don't have to use those words, but we look at what happens today in the use of this word, and it's so disrespectful. And so we raised our kids in the same way. They never, ever, ever heard a swear word in our home, and I've never, ever heard a swear word come out of my grown children's mouth. And so you model this thing. And like I said, the problem with respect is when we do not respect, what happens is we break relationship. And so I want to spend my last few minutes and I want to talk about how we deal with this, how we discipline in the household. And so when it comes to discipline, there's actually two words that we use. One is discipline and one is punishment. And there's quite a bit difference, these two words. So discipline actually comes from a Latin word, the same Latin word that we get our word disciple from. And discipline means to instruct, to teach, correct. It's a very positive term, discipline. Punishment also comes from a Latin word, the same Latin word which we get our word punitive from. And what that means is to inflict pain or hurt or, in some way make someone really pay for it. And so the big difference between discipline and punishment is that punishment makes you bitter, discipline makes you better. I want you to think about that for a moment. Now, I don't mean to be overly negative about this, but we may have had respect and honesty in the old days, but I'll tell you what we didn't have in the household most of the time, those of you who are my generation know this, is our parents didn't discipline us, they punished us. And not only did our parents punish us, the school punished us. So in my school, how many of you remember this, that if you disobeyed in class, you got sent down to the principal and they gave you the strap? How many of you remember this? So there are people who remember this. And they just beat the tar out of you. And then I had a particular teacher in grade 9, his name was Mr. Stevens. And Mr. Stevens walked around the classroom with a yardstick, willingly and frequently hitting people with it. He literally wielded this weapon and walked through his class smacking people. And not one kid ever complained to their parents. Do you know why? Because the parents would get mad at you, not at the teacher like they do today. But the reason I'm pointing this out to you is that we don't want to be punishing people. We don't want to be punishing our children because punishment won't work. And see, here's what happens is we punish them and we want to inflict pain because we're mad, we're angry at them. And so our parents spanked us and they hit us and our teachers did the same. And I think if we've learned one thing, it's that discipline is far better. Now, here's what discipline does, and here's the big difference in it. That if honesty or dishonesty and disrespect break relationship, what should be the goal of discipline? To restore the relationship. Are you following this? To restore the relationship. See, the goal of punishment is what? To hurt them. You're following this, right? It's to hurt them. And so here's the thing. Discipline, first of all, it cannot be done if you're going to restore the relationship, number one, I hope you're listening to this. I hope you're taking notes, at least in your head. The first thing about discipline, number one, is it can't be done in anger. So you're going to have to let the anger subside. The second thing about discipline is it needs to have a goal. And the goal of discipline needs to be able to restore that relationship. And the third thing is that it should include empathy. Empathy. And here's what I want to tell you about. See, when Jesus came to the earth, he came to find a bunch of sinners like you and me. Did he punish us or did he discipline us? What was he bringing? Was he trying to hurt us? Was he trying to punish us? Or was he trying to restore the relationship? He was trying to restore the relationship. And how did he do it? He didn't do it in anger. He didn't do it rashly. He had a goal in mind to restore that relationship, and he did it through empathy. You say, what do you mean? It says this. It says, we do not have a high priest that cannot sympathize with us, for he was tempted in all points, even as we were. And Jesus came in his human form, and he came and he bore the price of sin on himself because he empathized with us, because he came to the earth as a human being, and he was tempted just like you were. And so when he looks at us, his thinking isn't, I need to harm these people because they've done wrong. His thinking was, I understand what they're going through. Therefore, I have to help them be restored to this. Are you following this? And this empathy is so important. So what happens when your kids misbehave, and if they are disrespectful or dishonest, you don't freak out. You go, oh no, we have a problem, right? You're now identifying with them. You're empathizing with them. And you say, what are we going to do to resolve this? What are we going to do to restore this relationship? So I want to close with one final story. I'm hoping you've got this little theory I've given you. So here's the story I want to tell you. I wish it was mine, but I don't have a good one like this. And it belongs to Andy Stanley. Andy Stanley is the pastor of that big church in Atlanta, Georgia. Many of you know who he is. And so he tells this story about his kids and how one night they went out and they got a babysitter. The babysitter's name was Pam. And Pam came and babysit the kids. And the kids were absolute terrors that night, absolute terrors. And she said, I hate to tell on your kids. When they got home, they were in bed asleep, the kids were. But when the parents got home, Pam said, I hate to tell you this, but your kids behaved so poorly today, and they treated me very badly. And she said what they had done. And so they said, thank you for telling us that. So they didn't wake the kids up. They weren't going to discipline them or punish them in anger. But the next morning, Sandra, Andy's wife, went into the room and said, okay, kids, wake up. We're going on a little excursion today. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to get dressed up, and I've got some cards sitting out on the workspace here, and you need to all write an apology card to Pam for how you treated her last night. And so write it out as best you can and apologize to her. And so they didn't know what was going on. They sat down and they wrote out these cards. And then she said, now go to your piggy bank and take out all the money you have in there. And so they went, and they said, we're going shopping. And they said, oh, good, we're going shopping. So they got their money out, and they got in the car, and they went down to the florist shop. And they picked out a bouquet, and these kids paid for the flowers with their own money. And then she drove them down to the office where Pam worked and went to her cubicle, unannounced. These kids marched up. They would have rather any other form of punishment. Hit us with a stick, hit us with a brick, take all of our video games away for the rest of our life. Don't make us do this. But she knew that this was the right move. So she took them down there, she said, now go up and give her the card and give her the flowers and apologize for last night and apologize specifically for what you actually did. And the kids, one by one, apologized to Pam, and Pam gave them a big hug. And guess what the end result of that story was? Relationship was restored. You see, honesty and respect are the keys to an officer and a gentleman, and they're also the keys to our children becoming kids that we can be proud of. Not only that we will enjoy our kids, but everybody else will enjoy them as well. Let's stand together, shall we?
If you'd like a booklet to help you understand more about God's gift of forgiveness and reconciliation through Jesus Christ, please contact us, and we'd be happy to send you a free copy of the Book of Hope. Visit our website at www.churchoftherock.ca. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.